Good morning, everyone. Lorne Hanick here for Elul Elevation. I'm going to be talking for a few minutes about a particular prayer, but before that, let's take a look at this. Many of you are familiar with the High Holiday Prayer Book, which we call the Mahzor. Many of you, but most of you, are not as familiar with the Selihot Booklet that we use on the first night of Selihot, which this year will be on the Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah. And some of the prayers on the high holidays you're all familiar with. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Kol Nidre, the biggie poems, Piyyutim that we recite every year that enhance the regular davening that we do. But one of the gems of the high holiday season that most of you are not here for, but I encourage you to study it and maybe attend, is the early morning Selihot penitential prayers. So in addition to doing Selihot on the Saturday night before Rosh Hashanah, many people come to recite these prayers every day between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And on erev Yom Kippur, there's a special Piyyut poem that's recited, and that's what I want to deal with today. Because this poem is really unique. It has a refrain of, "Tomorrow this sign shall come to pass." That's the refrain of the poem. Machar yiyeh ha'ot hazeh. Now, in the context of the poem, you would think that Machar yiyeh ha'ot hazeh, tomorrow is the sign that shall come to pass, refers to whether or not, metaphorically, we are going to be inscribed in the book of life. That's what you would think from reading this poem. But that line, Machar yiyeh ha'ot hazeh, tomorrow shall this sign come, is an excerpt from the book of Exodus, going back to the narrative of the plagues, where God brings the sixth plague, and Moses says to the people, Machar yiyeh ha'ot hazeh. So we have an interesting connection between Pesach, when we eat unleavened bread, and Yom Kippur, when we eat no bread. It's not possible to share the entire poem with you in detail, but every poem of this type, and you can see it in the high holiday prayers that you are already familiar with, the genius of these poems is that the paitan, the organizer, the composer of the poem, has dozens of references to biblical episodes, rabbinic passages, and various tales, midrashim. The authors of these poems assumed that we had an encyclopedic knowledge of all of Jewish learning, which we don't. So it's impossible to pick all of these up. But I'm going to read two middle paragraphs from this prayer, and you will delight in what you hear is familiar. I'm going to read in the English. Let this sign come tomorrow. Come near and hear my prayer. Open your gate to my crying and purify my sin as if I were an innocent babe of a year old. Stop the tongue of my accuser and let him not open his mouth. O Lord, rebuke Satan. Arise, get down from here quickly. And the refrain, Machar yiyeh ha'ot hazeh. Let this sign come tomorrow. One more stanza. How shall I come and bow myself before him who takes no bribe, when I have no needs to show? Therefore my heart is afraid. But now when I remember the sovereignty of the divine name, when all of them in unison and prolation recite that the Lord is one, Shema Yisrael, I therefore trust that this sign will come tomorrow. Let this sign come tomorrow. And then we have that refrain again from the book of Exodus. The historical memory of the Exodus becomes the model for the hoped-for redemption of every Yom Kippur. Just as God's announced sign once brought deliverance to Israel and judgment to Egypt, the worshiper prayers that tomorrow's sign will again reveal God's covenantal faithfulness by sealing his people for life, forgiving their sins, vindicating the righteous, and restoring his flock. Shana Tova. We look forward to seeing you in Shul.